What's going on, boys? Welcome back. It's your boy Max. In this video, I want to give you guys the mental hack that will get you over your fear of cold approach. But before I do that, I want to share with you guys a little bit about my background in cold approach and my experience of getting over my personal fear of cold approaching women every single day. So, for those of you guys that don't know my story, essentially in high school, I was pretty decent with women, right? I've been in a few relationships. I've, lost my virginity very young at 15. And, I was you could say a ladies' man in high school, right? But as I started to get older, I got more and more involved in vices, right? Smoking, partying, drinking, going out, partying, things like that. And my involvement with these vices essentially killed all the self-respect that I had for myself, right? And so it slowly compounded over time, and eventually I didn't even recognize myself, right? I lost all confidence that I had in myself, and I just became this sort of like shell of a person that I used to be, right? I used to have pretty good social skills, right? Not the best, but for a high school kid, I was pretty good, right? Talking to people, striking up conversations with strangers. I just didn't care, right? But as I kept doing the vices, essentially, I started caring more. I started caring what people thought. I started caring about what people are thinking of me, how I'm coming across. And this really put me inside of my mind and stopped me from approaching people, approaching just strangers, and of course, approaching women, right? So it all changed for the worst in college, right? Because after high school, I went into college, and my first year in college, that's when the world shut down, right? That's when the quarantine happened and everyone was at home. And so all classes became online. So just as I was getting to college, freshening up my skills, right, my social skills out of high school, the world shut down, and now everyone's just isolated at home. I'm taking online classes. I would literally wake up. My daily schedule would be to wake up 5 minutes before the class would start. I would turn on the Zoom meeting. Sometimes I would just go back to sleep. Sometimes I would just leave on the Zoom meeting, go take a hit of my pen, go make some breakfast, and just be high all day and not really like pay attention in class. And that was my day, every single day in college when we were online, right? Even my friends, like, we still associated, but they became very isolated as well. And so all of the social contact that I had basically returned to zero, right? And this was one of the darkest times of my life, right? Because I got even more indulgent in vices, right? I started smoking even more. I started going out even more, right? I started doing all this dumb shit even more. And I stopped taking care of myself, stopped taking care of my looks, right? Stopped getting haircuts, right? Stopped grooming myself. And all of this killed my self-confidence even more, right? And I remember eventually I reached this sort of super low point. And I was like, I'm at this position, like, I really, literally didn't recognize who I was, right? And I was like, there's no way. I just came from being this guy in high school who attracted older girls, who was this fly kid who was always known for like being well groomed, having nice hair, dressing nice, being able to talk to women, being this smooth player, right? That's what I was known for. And now it's like I completely fell off, and I refused to be the guy who peaked in high school. But that's basically what I was about to become, the guy who peaked in high school. But I refused to do it, right? I was like, there's no way I'm gonna let myself stay like this. So I started consuming self-improvement content heavy. Like, I was consuming it before, but at this point, I had my earphones in 24/7, and I would just listen to this stuff all day, right? I would listen to, red pill stuff, self-improvement stuff, and I would also watch like cold approach videos. And eventually, I started watching so many cold approach videos that I was like, it's about time I actually start taking action. It's about time, like, I could watch all these videos, but I'm not gonna get any better, right? I'm never gonna actually gain my masculine edge back until I actually put into action. And so I forced myself. I forced myself to go out every single day. I remember I would go out on my bike and I would literally go around my borough just on the bike, just on long ass bike rides. And I would force myself to talk to strangers every single day. Now, when I first did this, when I first started doing this routine, it was horrible. Like, I literally got brutally rejected. People looked at me with disgust, right? People like looked at me like they didn't want to talk to me at all. And I wasn't used to any of this. Because like I said, in high school, it was all super easy for me. It's like it flowed super easily. The conversations were just natural, right? Girls didn't really like brutally reject me like that. But it made sense because I wasn't taking care of my looks. I literally looked like a caveman, and all my social skills were gone essentially. So I had to build from the ground up again. And so I forced myself. I forced myself to talk to strangers, to talk to, the barista, to talk to that store clerk, and just like I would work my way up from there. But it wasn't until I implemented this one thing that I really started to get better. So the world started opening up again. We got back into in-person classes. And one of my friends, one of my close friends, my best friend at the time, he was very charismatic, right? This guy was like just super charismatic, super, like, he would be able to talk to anybody, right? Strike up a conversation with anybody and just make them feel good. And even though he was still doing vices, right? He was doing even more vices than me. And yet he still had this quality about himself. And it was a quality about him that I actually really admired. And so I would hang out with him and we went to the same college. And I was like, okay, if he's doing this, he's doing the same vices as me, and yet he still is great at talking to people. He's great at talking to women. What am I missing, right? And so I don't know what made me do this, but what I started doing was when I started approaching women on campus, I started almost like channeling in my friend's personality into my own. And so I would stop acting like myself and I would just start acting like my friend, right? The way that he would carry the conversations, like he wouldn't speak the same way I would. The way that he flirts, the way that he speaks to people, it would be a little different than I would. But I just started acting like him. I started talking to like him, and like to women. I started flirting like him, and over time, I noticed that people were very receptive of this, and it killed my fear of approaching, right? Because I went from literally like feeling like I'm about to get a heart attack just at the thought of approaching that girl that I found attractive. Like literally, I would feel like I'm about to get a panic attack, right? That's how bad it was. So I went from that point into, yeah, my heart would beat a little bit. Maybe my face would get a little flustered. But then once I was in the approach, once I was get going, it was all natural. And so that tremendously helped me. And so what I want to tell you guys to do, if you are terrified of approaching, if you feel like approaching is not for you, right? You prefer to do, stick to social circles, stick to dating apps, which is great, right? These are great methods. But as a man, you must be able to speak to people, not just women, but anybody, right? You must be able to strike up conversations with anybody, anywhere, without having fear, without having fear of judgment, with actually knowing what value you provide. Because that's the only way you're actually gonna open up doors to opportunity and to relationships, right? So that's what I started doing. And so what I want you guys to do is, if you're terrified of this idea of approaching strangers, start with just approaching, regular people, right? I'm talking men, women, like old people, young people, doesn't matter, right? Have no intention but to strike up some conversation. And when you do so, When you approach these people, you're still going to be terrified. But here's the thing. I want you to think about the most charismatic person you know. So for me, it was my friend. So it was easy for me to channel his personality. If you have a friend, you have a brother, a sibling, maybe your father, right? Somebody that you know who's very good at speaking to people, who's very good at conversation, who's very good at flirting, right? Who's this just charismatic individual. What I want you to do is just to act like them, right? Pretend like you're them, right? Pretend like you're acting and you have to give an impersonation of your friend, of your brother, of your father, right? Whoever it is. And if there's nobody around you that's very good at social skills like that, then think about the most charismatic celebrity that you know, right? Let's say, for example, Johnny Depp, right? You're gonna watch Johnny Depp interviews. You're gonna study the way that he speaks, the jokes that he makes, right? The little like micro things that he says within his conversations, the little witty comments that he makes, and you're gonna just copy him, right? You're not gonna be yourself. You're just gonna copy him. I know everybody tells you, "Oh, just be yourself," but that's one of the worst advice that you can have. When you just be yourself, why would you just be yourself if you're a socially awkward, right, low confident, just shell of a man? Why would you just be yourself? That's the worst advice you could give to somebody like that. You should only be yourself once you've actually established your own game. And that leads me to this next part. Once you start acting like this charismatic individual that you know, you're gonna notice that people are becoming way more receptive to you. And so this lowers your fear of approaching. But what I want you to avoid, and this is what separates the greats from just like your regular day-to-day people that can just to talk to strangers, right? They can just hold a normal conversation. This is what separates the advanced guys who can actually approach hot women on the street to just, your average Joe. And that is, once you get over that fear of approaching, you must be able to establish, to create your own style, your own game, so to call it, right? Your own game. You must become your own person. Now, how do you do this, right? How do you become your own person? How do you establish your own game? Well, you want to take little bits and pieces from people that you know who are good with women, who are charismatic individuals, who get what they want just by speaking. Take little bits and pieces. Okay, this worked. I like this from this guy, but this other part, it doesn't really fit who I feel like I am, right? This side is not really me. Just take little bits and pieces from different people, put it all together. That's you. And then throw in a little spice of your own. That's you. That's your game, right? And that's what I did. Thank God I did that, right? Because you don't want to be a complete copy of someone else because you're never going to truly feel that confidence. But when you can take the good parts from the good people and leave the bad parts, leave their flaws alone, and just sprinkle in your own style to it. And this comes with experience. This comes with reps. You're going to have to put in hundreds of reps to actually establish this. But what you want to do is you want to experiment. Don't be afraid to experiment. Don't be afraid to try new lines. Just because your friend doesn't use this line doesn't mean you can't say it, right? And that's where your game will come from. You use like new lines, you make new comments, you make new witty jokes, right? Because conversations are usually all the same, right? People ask you, okay, what's your name? Where are you from? A little bit about your background. Most conversations are just very surface level. And if you can find different answers, different unique creative answers to those surface level questions, that's going to make you a way more charismatic individual, someone that people love to talk to, right? So for me, for example, people always ask me where I'm from, and then I would tell them I'm from Azerbaijan. And 9 times out of 10, nobody knows where that is, right? Nobody knows where Azerbaijan is. And I'll be like, oh yeah, it's like, the Kardashians? They'll be like, yeah, I know the Kardashians. And I'm like, yeah, so it's like right next to, they're from Armenia, and it's right next to Armenia. And then they'll be like, oh yeah, I know someone from Armenia, or I know someone from Turkey. And then, we strike up the conversation like that. That's just like one of the creative answers that I've saved, I guess you could say, for my own story, right? You gotta do the same for yourself. You never want to just copy someone's swagger completely, because then it's never actually gonna seem like you, right? And that's what you do. You put in reps every single day, and then you level up. You go from talking to just the store clerk, just to the random guy on the street, the old man in the park, and you start actually approaching women that you're attracted to. You start with the sixes, you start with the sevens, work your way up to the eights, the nines. I would just go straight for the eights and the nines, because that's gonna speed up your learning curve so fast, right? If you just spend too much time with the sixes, the girls that you're not too attracted to, then you're gonna learn slower, right? But the more attractive the women are, the more nervous they get you, the faster you're actually gonna learn. So just throw yourself in the fire, right? Throw yourself in the fire. Use the bits and pieces from the most charismatic people that you know. Just act like them. Get over that fear and understand that, okay, this woman that's in front of me, yeah, she's super attractive, but she's just a human just like me, right? Like my boy says, she shits, she bleeds, she pees just like me, right? That's what all she does. She's just a human, right? Just the opposite gender. She's not gonna kill you, right? Like no camera's gonna come out and call you a loser for approaching this girl, or for fumbling over your words, right? Or for your voice breaking, or for you getting rejected. Nothing's gonna happen, right? A lot of times we just put these false scenarios in our mind, right? Because of the way society has kind of pressurized men. Sometimes they tell guys that, oh, don't approach women, oh, just leave women alone. And so we create these false scenarios in our head that stop us from doing one of the most masculine things there is, which is to approach women, right? Like, you literally would not be here if your great grandfather did not approach your great grandmother. You wouldn't be here, right? That's what we had to do back then, before online dating, which is great. Online dating is a great tool, and I give you guys the resources to crush that as well. But you still must be able to actually speak to the woman, right? Eventually, you're gonna go out on a date with this chick. You need to be able to hold a conversation, to hold eye contact, to have good body language, have good banter. And that just comes with experience, with reps. So I hope this video was helpful and that you guys implement this tip, because it truly changed my life, right? I've approached over 300 women in my life, which I don't know if that's a lot. I don't know if that's a little, right? I'm not some crazy pickup artist guy. Like, I don't cold approach every single day. But if I see something I like, I have the ability to go after it. And that's what truly matters. You don't have to do this shit every day if you don't want to. If you're starting out, I recommend that you do it every day to get in the rhythm. But once you already got it going, once you already established your own game, you don't gotta do this shit every day. You don't have to go out specifically just trying to strike up conversations, waste your time. You just have this skill in your pocket that you know anywhere you go, if you see someone you're interested in, you can speak to them with confidence. And that is a lot about what being a man is all about. That's what being a man is all about. Just going after what you want. That opportunity, right? That job opportunity. That woman that you want, right? Whatever you want, just go get it. Go get it, right? That's what testosterone does. It makes you go after the things you want. So go, align yourself with your highest masculine self. Reclaim your masculine edge and just go after what you want and implement this tip. I promise you, it will change your life. It changed my life for the better. And I hope you boys enjoyed this one. I'll see you boys in the next one. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you found this video helpful. And I'll see you boys. Stay dangerous.